This is question number 2 from the August 2016 Algebra 2 exam. So we need to figure out which of these 4 statements about statistical studies is true. Let's take a look at the first one. A survey of all English classes in high school would be a good sample to determine the number of hours students throughout the school spend studying. So we need to think, is there any bias? If all English classes in a high school, is there a bias to the number of hours they spend studying? And there certainly would not be. So that would totally be an allowable study to do. Number 2, a survey of all 9th graders in a high school would be a good sample to determine the number of student parking spaces needed at that high school. Well, I don't think the United States is that different from Canada, where I'm from, but 9th graders typically are too young to drive. I mean, in Alberta, where I'm from, you got to be at least 16 years old. So that's definitely not going to be a good sample group to ask that survey question. Number 3, a survey of all students in one lunch period in a high school would be a good sample to determine the number of hours adults spend on social media websites. Well, here's the problem. We were asking students in a high school how many hours adults spend on social media websites. High school kids aren't adults, so that's not an accurate group to ask that question. That just does not make sense. And number 4, a survey of all calculus students in a high school would be a good sample to determine the number of students that don't like math. Well, you've definitely got some bias here because typically students that have stuck out long enough to get into a calculus class generally like math. In high schools in Canada, calculus is usually optional. I mean, I think it's optional in most high schools. So typically, calculus students would like math. So that's definitely a biased survey. So that would not be a good sample group. So in the end, option number 1 is the only proper statement. So option number 1 is the correct one. All right, that's all for this video. Thanks for visiting JD's Regents Preparation.